Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar covering SCMH 5.3.1 PPAP approval delegation process. You want to move to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Before we get started, we wanted to just say a couple things. One, we are aware that there is an outage, so connectivity may be spotty. So know that we are recording this presentation and we'll be sharing it at the in a few weeks on the SCMH website, and I'll show you where in just a few minutes. But to help with your bandwidth, please do close other applications. Also, if you have any questions, we will be answering them as many as possible at the end of the presentation. So at the very top of this, please use the Q&A. And if there are specific slide references or specific questions to parts of it, if you could include maybe the slide number, that will help our presenters do the best they can in answering your questions. Now, without further ado, I'd like to hand it over. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me actually tell you a little bit about how to get to the SCMH. If you go to the IAQG.org, you can get to the SCMH through two ways. One is through the super navigation at the very top of IAQG.org, and you can see there right under the circle and just click on the SCMH. The other option is to go through the IAQG tools, which proceeds to give you a drop down. And again, you can click on the SCMH, learn a little bit about the software, and then it takes you right to the site itself. Once you're there, you can see that the SCMH in the upper left-hand corner is the Supply Management Handbook area. You can click on the topic. SCMH 5.3 PPAP approval delegations is in the deliver section of the guidance topics, and then you would need to drop down to the 5.3 section under the deliver topics page. And you'll see that both of those areas are circled for you for easy access. Know that in a few weeks, you can come back to that page, that section 5.3, and see that this is where the recording will be. Okay, so Pankaj, if you could take over and introduce our presenters today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. Yes, so my name is Pankaj Dev. I'm part of Collins Aerospace. I'm leading APQP initiative at Collins, and I'm part of IAQG SCMH team. I'm working for almost 5 years now. I led a couple of teams there, and I was fortunate to lead this team as PPAP approval delegation. And I'm looking forward to this webinar. Uh, Ivan is Ivan from Airbus. He's facing currently challenges to join our webinar, some technical challenges. So I will hand it over to Brett. Brett, can you please introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, good morning. I'm Brett Withington. I work for MBDA. I've been here for about just over 3 years. So we are new to APQP, but historically I've worked in automotive and aerospace. So I've got some experience with APQP and PPAP. So.
Thank you so much, Brett. Okay. So in today's webinar, what we wanna focus on is what's the scope of this particular process, PPAP approval delegation process. We will talk about, we'll introduce this framework. We will talk about the top level processes, like there are 5 steps approach in order to give this PPAP approval delegation. We'll go in detail of those 5-step approach. And then before we summarize this, we have few examples, few scenarios in which those scenarios will be helpful to make those decisions, whether the customer wants to give that PPAP approval delegation to the particular supplier or not. So those examples can support the decision making process. So that's the content for webinar. As Susan already mentioned, please do write your questions in Q&A section. And what we'll do is at the end we'll try to go through as many questions as possible in order to address those open points. So the first point, scope. I do want to make it, before we entering into the further discussion, I do want to make few things clear that this framework, this PPAP delegation framework, is not focusing on any other customer supplier alignment is already existing, whether it is FAI, whether it is process and product changes, those communications stays as it is. The focus of this framework is totally on how do we delegate the PPAP approval process. So please keep that in mind. This does not change anything which a customer and supplier in aerospace industry has the connection, has the relationship. That does not change at all. This guidance is totally focusing on um, how to give a delegation for PPAP approval from customer to supplier, and what are the risk factors to look for, and how to govern that particular process. So please keep in mind, this is focusing on PPAP approval delegation and nothing other than that. Um, Again, the this is a reference material, this is a guidance material, so it doesn't have any shall requirements, it doesn't have any auditable expectations. So this is just a framework. If a supplier and customer would like to go on that path, on this path of getting the PPAP approval delegation, what are the things they should be focusing on? So this is not something as a shall requirement, as it exists in a guidance material. And the last point, this process can be initiated, or it should be initiated as soon as a customer and supplier makes a communication on any NPI, any new product introduction. Earlier you initiate this, better it gets, because then you have the confidence in the supplier, making sure that okay, the PPAP delegation which you're offering to has a meaning in it, and it can be governed in a sensible way. So just make sure that you start as early as possible in this process if you would like to go down that path. Then introduction. So you will ask why this process is actually needed, why this guidance is needed. As we all know, AS 9145 has been rolled out since November 2016. It's a big cultural change. It was a big cultural change, so it took little bit of a while, to get everybody on board, to understand what are the expectations from 9145, what is trying to do, and creating infrastructure around it, creating a guidance material, having some trainings, etc., etc. So it took a while, but now for few years, you can see the 9145 is getting momentum in this space. Now almost all the customers are flowing down 9145 requirements for any upcoming product development. So uh, industry is gaining momentum in that space. So imagine you go through the motions of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 of 9145, and once the product hits the serial production, for PPAP approval, for the PPAP resubmission, you have to contact your customer, get the PPAP resubmission done on any product and process changes, and then it can become a time consuming activity. It can become a bottleneck that you are making any changes in the serial production and you're waiting for customers PPAP approval. So that can create that bottleneck. So we wanted to be proactive. We wanted to make sure that we provide some guidance if customer and supplier would like to have some framework in place where customer can trust or can have the confidence in the supplier that for the small changes, for any changes product or process in the serial production, supplier is able to manage and create the resubmission of PPAP and have those independent review within the organization, and customer can have an oversight of it, and it doesn't have to go through every PPAP package approval. So that's kind of this need came from. And the benefits are, as I said, we will avoid any potential future bottleneck which may create some on-time delivery issues, or the approval process itself. So this can help in creating the accountability, creating that governance piece in the supply chain base, and have that confidence in place that the way we rely on implementation of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, we also show confidence in the supplier that they are gonna have phase 5 also in control, and gonna govern PPAP process in phase 5. So those are kind of the points which triggered creation of this team and creation of this material. Next slide is about the process itself. So what we thought about is we kind of brainstormed together. There were 10 companies participated in creating this material. So we considered the current issues. We consider what are the challenges currently companies are facing in terms of APQP implementation. And then we identified, okay, if we want to go down that path, if we want to create some framework for PPAP approval delegation, what are those risk factors and how do we identify them, and how can we make that most most sensible decision, whether we want to, as a customer, whether we want to delegate PPAP approval, PPAP approval or not. So the first three factor came in our mind is, first of all, it should be the technical risk should be assessed. It should be looked into what kind of a part, what kind of a part family, what kind of a impact that particular product has. That should be considered. That should be part of your technical risk assessment, whether you would like to give the delegation for this particular part or the part family. Then second factor came in mind is, okay, what kind of a processes supplier has, what kind of a risk exists in supplier APQP process itself, what sort of infrastructure supplier has for developing a product from phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, what sort of trainings they have available, is the APQP embedded into their QMS system, um, uh, do they have some kind of a training available for PPAP approvers, are those reviews, are those trainings independent, can they handle the expectations of individual PPAP PPAP delegation. Then the third factor we we considered is how the supplier is performing. Before you make that decision, okay, you want to trust the supplier in terms of, or have the confidence in the supplier, they can manage their own product and process changes in the serial production, and do the due diligence of going through the delta PPAP and approving that on their own. You want to look into their performance, how they are performing currently together with the customer, how the customer's satisfaction KPIs are. So those factors of the performance needs to be considered. And then once you have those three factors, three risk factors, then you can make a delegation decision. We want to highlight that this delegation decision should be a decision made by multifunctional team at the customer. It should involve at least engineering who gives the input on technical risk. It should be part of the supply chain quality team members. They can look into the supplier risk evaluation process and supplier risk performance, and they make a decision together. They make sure that, okay, we have evaluated the risk and we want to proceed with this supplier by giving this PPAP approval delegation, so that supplier can manage in phase 5 their own product and process changes, and create the delta PPAP package, and approve it. And then the last factor is the governance. Once you give that delegation to the supplier, you may want to make sure that you have some kind of a governance in place. That okay, you evaluate the delegation process itself, how many PPAP packages were approved for that particular year by the supplier, how the changes were triggered, where the approvers are independent or they part of the team. So there are many factors which you can consider as a part of governance, and that governance can help you to continue the delegation uh, for that particular part, for that particular supplier, or you may want to have some corrective actions in place. So all in all, this is kind of the framework which we came up with. uh, Now I see Ivan is online. Before I handing it over to him, I would like to just make one last comment on this. Is just a framework. If any customer is already having some form of technical risk assessment, some form of supplier risk evaluation in terms of processes, in terms of performance, if they work as a team, as a multifunctional team, and they can make that delegation decision together, so you don't have to change anything. Whatever we are going to show in this webinar is not a must have things. These are the things which, if a supplier and customer is going down the path of delegation of PPAP approving, then they should consider these factors. If you don't have anything, then this could be a good guidance material for you. Then you can have those processes created, have those have those discussions with your supplier, have that evaluation in place, and then make the wise decision to give that PPAP approval or not. So now I would like to hand it over to Ivan. Ivan, could you please introduce yourself and then maybe walk us through the next slides? Ivan, you're on mute. Oh, for some reason, Ivan is not. Yeah, he just had to. He's still facing some challenges. So, Brett, do you wanna jump in and walk us through?
Absolutely. Okay. So everybody, just to initiate this process, a change of some sort needs to be identified. And we spent a bit of time as a team going through all the various types of changes that that could occur, and we kind of pulled them into four key categories. We've got some new product development or new design, a design change, some process changes, or work transfer. And these are just things or events that might happen within the building that then initiates the process for the PPAP delegation. Okay, next slide, please. So the principal element of the initial session about technical risk assessment. And again, this is just to reiterate from what Pankesh is saying, this is going to be unique to every organization. Every organization's product set, the risk of their products will vary from organization to organization. So the technical risk assessment is really unique to your organization. So there's a technical risk review of the product. So if we just look at, for instance, process change, the process change may have some safety critical items. They may have an impact. The features may have an impact to airworthiness. There may be special characteristics. There might be a change criteria as defined from the FAIR process, or there might be some impact to product or special processes. So they're just from the process changes. So you can see, we're thinking about all different types of changes. This is not limited to this group. There may be other changes as you look at your product to say, actually, this is where my product sits, and these are the types of changes that interest me and that we want to consider within our supply chain. So we are expecting the organizations to have some kind of technical risk of that change to the impact of the product. Okay, next slide, please, Pankesh. So from a process map perspective, so as part of the materials, there is a detailed process map, and for the purpose of the webinar, we've broken that down into smaller sections, so you can just kind of see how it works. So this part here really is the feed in. So we've got the initial change category that all feed then into the technical risk assessment, and then the organisation will then literally make the assessment whether it is if the risk is acceptable or not. If the risk is not acceptable, we pretty much would be saying at that point no delegation to the supplier. Okay, next slide, please, Pankesh. So this is a supply risk evaluation and process performance. So this is really about your supplier and its performance. So we've lumped them together because these, again, this slide should be familiar to you as an organisation that is perpetually looking at suppliers, part of the AS 9100 series of standards that we are monitoring the risk of our product, our processes, and our suppliers. So really, we believe that this should be a multiple function really assessment that brings in all the understanding and knowledge of the suppliers and their activities, because in reality we're giving a delegation, or we're giving permission for someone to approve parts on their own volition. So really, again, we want to make sure that then if we're giving that delegation and we're giving that performance, we've got the right performance. So when we give that delegation, we've got a level of comfort. So we expect the organisations to follow their own risk assessments. We expect that as organisations that we are looking at our suppliers, we understand the risk, we understand the impact of their business to our businesses, to enable us then to make an informed decision whether we want to be given a delegation or not as part of their process. Okay, next slide, please, Pankesh. Again, I'm not going to go through this, but as you can see, there's multiple decision boxes that go through the various activities that we'd expect. Again, it's very small on my screen, so I can't review it with you. But fundamentally, we assess the suppliers. Are they okay or not? If they are okay, we can continue. If they're not okay, we may want to do some corrective action and get them to a standard where we can give delegation, because it may be that we feel that they're not far away, but we can give them some work to get to the right level. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, again, that's just the performance section. So if we just continue on. Okay, so the delegation decision. So again, this should be a multidisciplinary approach based on the assessments for technical risk. So we're understanding, is the product a risk? It may be such a risk we say, no, we're not going to give that delegation. Supplier risk on their processes and supplier risk on their performances. Are they, is this, are they in a position where the delegation is not going to give us a problem to our organisations? Delegation should be assigned to an individual. It's not transferable. So if we say the delegation is by part number, by organisation, it can't be transferred. So if we are dealing with an organisation that has multiple sites, we may just say we're going to give it to site A, but site A then can't transfer the delegation to site B. Or we may just say we want to give it to you for product line A, but you can't then transfer it to product line B. Or you may just decide as an organisation, we're just going to give the whole site approval for all their products. It depends on your organisation, and it depends on the supplier and the product that they're supplying. The scope of delegation should be defined by those that are given the delegation and not by the supplier. And again, we've just talked about that. It could be a single part, it could be multiple parts, product family, process. It could be a special process organization, or it could be a whole site. Really, it is the delegation really is dependent on the organization that is giving that delegation. So that's really important for you to hear that and for you to make that assertion for yourselves. Okay, next slide, please. Again, really simple process map, yes or no. And if it's no, you go back around the loop and to go through those activities to be able to give that delegation or to ultimately decline it permanently. Okay, next slide, please. So the governance. So interesting. As I've been thinking about how we present this, the processes that you've seen today in reality shouldn't be new. These are common. These are common approach to risk assessment and to give permission for someone to do something. Really, as I've been thinking about this, it's on the plan, do, check, act cycle. As we think about giving delegation to other organisations to sign on our behalf, the cycles that you've seen are pretty common. So I'm not expecting you to think that there's anything new here that we presented to you today, and that actually one of the things that we really want to sort of have you think about is we should already be doing supply risk assessments. We should already be understanding the capability of our suppliers and what they're doing. Really, what we are saying here as part of this PPAP delegation, that we just add a few words into existing processes. So when we look at our suppliers, would we give these guys a PPAP delegation? Yes or no? If it's not, why not? Should we be able to? Yes, we should, but they're not capable yet. Why not? What do we need to go and do? And we then, as part of our governance activities, then look at how we then uplifting our suppliers to be able to get them to a position where they can sign off that delegation. So it's really important that you're not going out and developing a brand new process. And actually, the decision trees in the process map that we've written will be familiar to you all and should just be able to incorporate into existing process maps that you have within your organizations. Okay, next slide, please, Pankaj. Again, this is really just again a very basic part of the process map. Monitor the performance. Are we going to give approval? Yes or no? If it is a yes, give the delegation. If not, there's corrective action. One of the other things as well, the box at the very bottom there is about ongoing decisions. We should be ongoingly monitoring our suppliers. If a performance changes, if we believe that there's a change to the technical risk to the product, we may have misinterpreted something at the beginning. We can go back round that loop again and redefine whether delegation should be appropriate for that particular part, organization, etc. Okay.
Okay. So, Brett, what I could do is I could go through a couple of scenarios, and then maybe I can hand it over to you for remaining 2 scenarios, and we can walk them through on how this material can be used in different cases. So you can imagine scenario 1 where a company is developing a new product, but it is not truly new. It's just a modification to the existing product where they are changing some dimensions. So the technical team, the team with engineering from the customer, they evaluated that it's a low risk because it's just a feature being changed, and there is no impact on the higher system. So that's the evaluation coming from customers engineering. The supply chain quality team, they conduct a process risk evaluation and the performance risk evaluation, where both shows low risk, because what they have seen in the past that this particular supplier is generally meets the expectations, and they have good processes in place. And they they have gone through this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 in the past with the same supplier, and they feel confident that supplier has infrastructure in place for 9145. So with that information, this IPT, this multifunctional team of engineering, supply chain quality, from the customer decides, they may decide to give to grant the delegation for this particular the particular product development for this supplier. Again, they can decide for this particular product, or they can decide as a supplier location itself, this particular supplier can handle PPAP delegation for all the products what they can manufacture at that location. As Brett showed us earlier, this all depends upon the scenario based upon the case to case basis, and customer can make that decision based on evaluating those risk factors and seeing, okay, how confident they are in that particular supplier, in that particular product. Another example, if like there's a design change similar, like but this time they are not only changing one of the characters, but they're changing the material. And then engineering team from the customer, they rate it as a high risk because there are some specific performance requirements are expected from the raw material, and it is very sensitive towards the customer satisfaction. So the technical team for the engineering team rates it as a high risk, and supplier process and supplier performance team also rate the supplier in terms of high risk or medium high risk. This particular supplier, they have some processes, but they have seen some gaps. They are not robust, and in terms of performance, they are not performing well in terms of customer satisfaction KPIs. Maybe their on-time delivery is not where it is expected, or they have high PPM. So all in all, by looking at this particular scenario, the customer can decide, oh, I have a technical risk, I do have medium and high risk in terms of supplier process itself, and a risk where the performance is also not there. So it doesn't make any case to have this delegation provided to the supplier. It's better that let the supplier go through the motions of phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and once the PPAP package is created, customer can review those, customer can provide the approval, and may think of giving the delegation in the future. But in this particular scenario, they may decide not to grant the delegation and keep that right of approving PPAP packages to themselves. So, which is, I just wanted to show you two examples, two scenarios, which either like one goes towards they may grant the delegation, and in another example they may not grant the delegation based on the risk factors. And for the scenario 3 and 4, Brett, do you wanna walk us through?
Yep, sure. Okay, so when we look at scenario 3, we're talking about a process change here, and this is a significant change to change the part to an additive layer manufactured component, away from a traditional machine part. So the technical risk could be considered low by the technical authority. The part is used in a location where there's no stress applied, so they're not worried about the material makeup, and it's not in a visual. It's not visual to the end user. So the form may look different, and it wouldn't be observed by the customer. From a supplier risk perspective, we'd say high, because the particular supplier has some poor process controls, and has a very low APQP maturity capability. From a supplier performance risk, we could say medium, because the supplier generally meets most of the customer KPIs. So the decision may not grant the delegation, even though the product risk is low. the behaviours at the supplier and their performance is not where we need to be. So I guess from our initial justification, you could say, well, actually, the process methodology combined with poor supply controls leaves the customer at a higher risk situation. However, the process risk and the performance risk could be mitigated with some supply development activities from the customer in with the supplier, supporting their, help build capability around process controls, give them some training on IAQG because they could be new into the environment and IAQG is new to them. It would be almost unfair to penalise them because of that capability. But you still want that capability in the organisation if someone's going to sign a PPAP. So for that one, you may not grant, but actually it may not be too difficult to work with that supplier to get them into a better position to be able to sign off that product. Scenario 4, sorry, is a work transfer. So supplier is changing manufacturing location. So this is a geography move. So the technical risk, we could say high. So for the scenarios, parts contain safety critical characteristics. So we're all very concerned about characteristics that are key to safety performance. So the supplier process risk we said is low. Supplier is mature, has all the process controls in place, and assessed with zero business improvement opportunities. So robust organisation. Supplier performance risk low, meets all current KPIs. So from an organisation, pretty strong. And the decision is probably to grant a delegation. And our justification will be, even with a high risk product, the supply demonstrates mature controls in the management of parts. So we would be confident that supplier would have a clear transfer plan, understanding capability of product before it leaves. When they move the production line, they would have parallel lines for a while, demonstrate that capability before switching over, demonstrating capability around those safety critical characteristics, and then therefore we would be comfortable with that organisation supplying product. Okay, thanks, Pankaj.
Okay. So Brett, do you want to summarize that, and maybe I can say the last few words, and then we open for
sure.
Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah.
So adoption of this guidance, we are pretty confident that it will really strengthen an organisation's capability throughout the industry. Not only does it take a burden off the customer in having some of the larger organisations having to sign lots of PPAP documentation for small issues, low-level changes. But what it actually does is, with clear identification of risk, management of risk, and working with the suppliers, we're actually going to uplift industry, whichever sort of sector that you're working in. So we believe that it's going to strengthen. It helps us identify technical risks. It helps us identify process risks at suppliers, performance capability of suppliers, and really not just to look at that and stop, but actually to look at that and say, we've got preferred suppliers here where we could lean in and support and help, or vice versa. It may be that we may have suppliers that are more capable than we are, and we can go in and learn from them and develop as well. So for me, this is for me and the team, this is a really good opportunity for looking at our suppliers in a different way, and to say, how can I bring my supply chain up where they can self-approve PPAP? Because that should be the underlying philosophy of this. It's not how can we stop people doing it. It's how can we lift our suppliers so we're confident that they can do this for us. And that's where really the philosophy around this training material should be, is about uplift and not holding back. So thanks, Pankaj.
Yep, absolutely. I can't agree more, Brett, on this. And the fundamental or the principle of 9145 is customer and supplier collaboration. if you go through the 9145 standard, the at every step it is mentioned that, okay, unless and otherwise aligned differently with between customer and supplier, the expectations from 9145 is that, we work together, we work as a partner, customer and supplier, in product development cycle, so that, we could develop robust products and we don't have the challenges in the serial production. So that's the key. And this framework is going to support, is going to complement building that confidence. Customer can show that faith into in the supplier, saying, okay, i i I I'm gonna work with the supplier on my AS9145 phase 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna work very closely with that, and then I'm gonna show confidence. Once I know there is an infrastructure in place, a supplier has the right mindset in terms of AS9145, and I can trust. I see the confidence in the supplier. I can delegate my PPAP approval process, and I'm just gonna zoom out and gonna govern that in general. So that's kind of the message, and the framework which we wanted to introduce and provide it to the industry. Now it's out there. You guys can explore that and make sure that we are working on that cultural change of 9145 journey, and we are supporting the industry in that sense. So that's it. That's what we had. I'm looking for Ivan, if he's on the call, to maybe say a few words before we start Q&A. I guess he's still trying to connect. Okay, so let us go through few questions. Maybe we can start with here. Brett, the question came in as you were showing some on the slides, the flow chart. Is it available, and can you help us maybe on a high level walk us through on that? So let me share my screen. Maybe you can uh, you can say a few words on this.
Sure. So I think it's what we've tried to do is we try to keep the process flow really simple. It will be available with the presentation pack on the SCMH website, so you're more than welcome to go through there and read it through. What we've tried to do is, on the left hand side, it's color coordinated in line with the process steps. Yeah, it's we're only getting a small envelope size, Pankaj, so it's a bit difficult to show everybody. So what we've tried to do is just to make it easier for the users to have it in a color coordinated. So impact category, so you can see there we've got the 4 main sort of changes that we considered. Obviously lots of variation within that about what is a process change, what is a work transfer. I think we spent a day debating just that first box. Then we've got the technical risk assessment, and then you've got the 2 decision boxes around that. Then as we go down, we've then got the blue section, which is about the supplier risk evaluation. It's about their process, so all the process steps around that are in that box. Then the green one is about the supplier performance. Again, so all the decision and the activities are in that section. The delegation decision is in the next box. So all around the delegation, that's where you make that decision. And then the last box is really about ongoing governance. Are they performing still? Do we need to make changes, etc.? So all the activities then around governance are highlighted in there. So what I'd suggest, though, is, as I mentioned in the discussion earlier on about the Plan, Do, Check, Act, it's pretty much the guiding light throughout this activity. So as you've got your own supplier evaluation activities, this will overlay quite nicely, we believe, and you should just be able to incorporate some of the language. So on the right hand side, there's some text boxes which elaborate those process steps. You'll probably be able to lift some of those words directly and just incorporate them into your existing processes. Okay, thanks, Pankaj.
Thank you so much. As Brett mentioned, this process flow is already available on our SCMH website, so you guys can download that and benefit from it. Another question coming in. So who shall who shall initiate this discussion? Is it a supplier? Is it a customer? How do you guys think of how that process is gonna get triggered? So maybe I can answer that. So as we said, this is a fundamental of 9145 is customer supplier collaboration. So if a supplier feels confident into their capability of how they have integrated AS9145 into their QMS, they have infrastructure in place. If they feel confident that they can manage their own PPAP package, then they can initiate, they can reach out to the customer and say, hey guys, you know, we can go through some assessment, and could you give us the delegation for PPAP approval? It can work the other way as well. The customer can think of, okay, I have seen the performance of this particular supplier. I see the technical risk as low, and I may wanna initiate the discussion on having the delegation. So there is no right or wrong answer. You can any like suppliers can reach out to customer can reach out to the supplier, but the key issue, the key suggestion is you should start as soon as possible, in the sense if you're initiating any new product development, if you're in the early stages of AS9145, have that initial dialogue, because that will help also to evaluate that particular scenario by how the supplier is performing in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. That can be also a good test in order to see if they can create some kind of a framework, and they can utilize a delegation process. I see Ivan now, he's on the call. So Ivan, I would I would like to hear you, and you may introduce yourself, and maybe you have heard us talking. If we have missed out on any point, please give us an overview.
No, I suppose that you can hear me.
Yes.
The first thing that I would like to say is thank you, Brett, and thank you, Pankaj, because the people don't know, but we are on Rust, try to connect it. We have a lot of issues due to the firewall. Unfortunately, I am not able to present it my part, but doesn't matter because my colleagues are cover me really well. I think that is was really clear the presentation. Maybe I would like to reinforce that this is a guidance. You repeat several times. This is a guidance with the minimum that we think that is good to manage the PPAP approval process. But after that, depend of each company, depend of each needs. You can manage as you want. It's very important to have the three main risk assessment steps: focus on the technical, focus on performance, and focus on the process. But after that, I think that depend of the needs, you can adapt. I think that is also more than recommended, is highly recommended that the delegate, the person that they have the delegation, is not the owner of the validation of the approval. That is two different person in the company, based mainly in the four eyes are better than only two. But I think that this is my comments. Maybe there is another thing that that always when you need to launch a new process, there is a lot of risk. Don't hesitate to assume the risk, and don't hesitate to start launching the process. And after that, one that you start to gain in confidence, you are going to mature or reinforce the process. Okay, don't try to achieve the perception in the first time because normally it take time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ivan. It was finally, the technical issues were gone, and people could hear you. So thank you so much. I Further question comes in as, let me read it out loudly. Would this material be available online? Yes, Sue mentioned that earlier. This material, the webinar will it is being recorded, and it will be available into our IAQG SCMH website. in a week or two times, in a week or two. So there's another question which comes in case of non-conformity, what are the options for the customer to mitigate the risk? Is the supplier in this accountable vis-a-vis customer, especially if the non-conformity is safety issue? So maybe I can.
Maybe Pankaj, yeah, I would like to make, and I was waiting this this question or a similar
Okay.
question, because with the delegation, the accountability remain in the customer. The only thing that you perform is the responsibilities in the supplier, but not the accountability. For this reason, even the conformity could be responsible of the supplier. After that, as the accountability remain and always remain, even under the delegation on the customer, is the customer who need to take the action to mitigate the non-conformity. Okay. And this is very important. I think that is a critical point, because sometimes we believe that when we perform some delegation, we remove all the accountability on us, and it's not. The only thing that we do is we remain the accountability, but we pass their responsibility to the supplier.
Yeah, that's well said. And even we also want to highlight at the same time that people should not mix up with any other supplier customer relationship with other processes with the delegation. Supplier is still responsible to communicate any process changes, any product changes through their proper channels. This guidance material is totally focusing on whether a supplier can in-house approve their submission PPAP packages or not. They still have to follow their normal channel, normal way of communication for any changes, for any other standard involved. So this is totally focusing on PPAP approval delegation. That's it. So that I just want to say it again louder, because it should not come out as we are trying to give guidance to any other standard than this. So there's one more interesting question. Should the supplier notify the customer for each PPAP validation after the process change or transfer of work in case of delegation? Is the delegation permanent or renewable at what frequency? So Brett, do you want to take that? And then maybe I can say a few words later.
It's a great question. I think that really depends on each of your organizations. This is there's no shells in any of this documentation. This is all guidance. So really, this is a perspective of each of the organizations. So if you are comfortable with your supplier's performance and the product, and you don't want to change that, then that's fine. As part of your governance activity, we should be perpetually monitoring the performance and the capability of our suppliers. If there is a change to the supplier's capability and performance, then you may want to withdraw that delegation. And if there is no change and everything's fine, then you may continue with that delegation. You may give your delegation for a single part number, and the supplier then provides 10 or 15 different parts to you, but you're only going to give them delegation on one part because that's what you feel is appropriate for that organization. So really there is written into this whole process is flexibility around your organization and around the relationship you have with your supply chain. So I really think that's how you approach this, and you can set, so when we talked about the risk assessments, we didn't say high, medium, low equals this. We just gave some scenarios of some of the things some of the ways that we are thinking. But in reality, within your organization, you're going to have your own assessments, and you're going to have your own governance, and you're going to have your own tolerance to what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And for me, that's how you run this. So if you want to say annually, I'm going to review my suppliers and I'm going to maintain or withdraw, that's up to you. If you want to say I'm going to review every 3 months, every year, every 5 years, that's entirely up to you and your organizations and your business management system, because you understand your risk, you understand your products, and you need to build your systems around those.
Yeah. And also, just to add to what Brett said, delegation does not also mean that okay, now you're kind of independent of doing those PPAP review, and you are not supposed to show anything or communicate anything with the customer. That's not the intention. The intention, customer as a part of governance, they can also decide the frequency, and they can also demand saying, okay, every change, instead of we approving, but we need to be notified of that particular PPAP package. So this is again a negotiation or the alignment between customer and supplier. How do they wanna implement this? Customer can set the expectation saying, okay, any work transfer changes needs to go through us or needs to have our own approval. So within the delegation, there could be a layer of, okay, these type of changes, it's okay, you can manage internally, but XYZ types of changes, you need to have approval from the customer. So this based on case, this is all depends on a case to case basis and how the relationship between supplier and customer is and how they are working together on that particular product. So again, it depends.
And maybe to complement it, that is
Mhm.
highly recommended that behind the PPAP delegation process should be an internal procedure in the companies
Absolutely.
for each customer who define the frame of work. And in line with that, you can define the frequency, you can define in which condition, with which kind of product, and also as a procedure, you can modify according your needs. Again, each company could be have a different needs, and for the reason should be a different process. And the information that we bring you is the guidance to build this procedure, but this procedure should be specific according the needs of each company.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we have only 3 minutes left, and maybe so the remaining questions, what we have, we'll try to answer them via email, or we can create an PDF and upload that in with the material itself. So we will do that. Any last few words, guys, before we call it a day, before we close the webinar? Brett, do you wanna say last few words?
No, I just looked at the process map just to underpin the comment you've just made. We put in here, the organization relays the decision to the supplier, including any scope, limitations, including product family approval. So again, really it is for us as customers to communicate with our suppliers and what we want to do. But again, I think really this is about how we build our suppliers and how we strengthen our respective industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Ivan, some few last
Maybe
words.
my last work is in relation with the reason of the delegation. The reason of the delegation is not to uh, remove the accountability on the customer, which, as we say, is more in line to reinforce the PPAP and the EPQP application through all the different layers in the supply chain, and to be able that everyone is able to apply PPAP and EPQP without any limitation on the capacity of the customer, suppliers, or whatever. And this is really the benefit, is really to perform a more mature PPAP and EPQP process.
Yeah, that's true. Well said. And for me, the key, just to add to that, the key is the close coordination between supplier and customer right from the day one. The earlier you connect, the earlier you coordinate and you define your scope on 9145, easier it's gonna get. And that's the key. We could avoid so many future issues in the serial production if we start collaborating well in advance, identify the design risk, identify the process risk, identify the risk in the supply chain, and make sure that we eliminate those into those first 4 phases of APQP. And then we enter into the serial production where the product is robust. We do have mitigation action in place if something arises, and we work very closely with the customer, and supplier works very closely in order to mitigate any potential risk. That's kind of the key. That's what 9145 is trying to drive. And hopefully this guidance material is going to help in reinforcing that message, and it's going to help us in our 9145 journey as a aerospace industry. That being said, now we would Susan, do you want to say last few words and maybe close the webinar?
Sure. Thank you very much. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. As everyone has said, appreciate you muddling through us through the technical difficulties. It has been recorded, and we will be putting it in the SCMH area under deliver, where the guidance material for all this paper, for all of what we've been talking about this morning, is in the 5.3 PPAP delegation area. So thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Right.